working and trying to achieve some of my goals, I've at the same time tried to travel a lot, because that's one of the things that I really value in life. So I've visited 99 countries so far at the age of 25, and hopefully I'll get to 100 very, very soon. But let's talk a little bit about goal setting. So often I discuss with my podcast partner, Iske, whether you should even set goals or not. I definitely say set goals for yourself all the time, and of course set some high goals as well when you do it. But when it comes to setting goals, I think it's very important that you of course ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? That's the goal, but why you want to achieve that goal. So figure out what is it that you value in life and what do you want to focus on. So instead of just setting, which a lot of business minded people do, set some sort of financial goal. I want 10 million or 50 million or whatever. Then ask yourself, why do you want that money? If it's money that you're setting a financial goal for, like what do you need it for? Is it to buy some sort of car, or is it to have financial freedom? So figure out what you value in life, and if what you value is really all about getting yourself a family and 4 kids or whatever, then figure out which goals you should set to achieve those dreams in the long run. And when we set goals, there's of course a lot of there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's this thing called SMART goals, but really don't make it too complicated. Just make sure that when you have a goal, write it down. If you don't write it down, you will not uphold yourself to it. Then make sure that it's always very specific, and then set a deadline for when you want to achieve it. Maybe you won't make it in time, but just put some ambitious deadline on the goals you set. And then, as I said, try to set a big goal. So I had a goal of visiting 100 countries at the age of 25. Okay, but how do I achieve that? Well, let's break it down. Say, okay, then I have to visit this many countries by this age in order to get to it. So try to break down the bigger goals in some sub goals when you go along. Normally I would ask on a public speech you guys to put up your hand if you're actually setting goals already, but it's a bit harder when I can't see all of you in the webinar.
What we can do instead, Lars, is we actually have this raise your hand function here in Google Meet, and it's located down in the bottom. So if you already do very proactively use goals to get better in life or achieve something cool, raise your hand using the raise your hand function down below. It looks a little bit like this, so it's probably easy to find. As we already get some answers back, so that's great to see.
That's
so
like a third or something.
So there's a lot of people already using goals very proactively in achieving something. And we get a comment here from Victoria. I'll just read this aloud, and we'll carry on with the discussion, Lars. So Victoria says, I've made sort of a wishful timeline for the coming 2 years, personally and the work life. So that sounds pretty good. It sounds like a good first step.
That sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend everyone think about it, write down some goals, because if you don't write it down and you don't set specific goals for yourself, I'm quite sure you won't achieve what you want to achieve. And you really have to, make a plan for it. So write it down and then make a plan for how you'll get there. To share a few of my own goals, so you can see how could it look according to this, where you make it specific and you set a deadline on it as well. I wanted to get a high GPA in high school, mainly to enter IB. Why did I want to enter IB? Not for CBS, not for the courses, but only for the people. So just studying with the right people. So always try to find a great network of other like-minded and ambitious people like this that you can talk to. I wanted to speak in front of as many people as possible. And and I wanted to publish a book. I've been fortunate to co-author 2, and then I have this goal. I'm visiting 100 countries at the age of 25. I also have some financial goals, of course. So I have a goal that I want to make $1 million a year, but in portfolio and passive income before I turn 35. So it's not really about having a lot of money for me to buy stuff, but just to make a lot of passive income so I can work on my terms. I'll probably always work a lot. I love to work, but I like the idea of being able to go wherever you want and work from wherever at any given time. So that was just a little bit on goal setting. Then I have a task for you to bring home. When you have set your goals and you write it down and everything, then a classic mistake that people do is they go on with their life. So they write down the goals and then they just go on with their lives as is. What I want you to try to do when you set your goals is to spend 10 minutes writing down what are the main tasks in your life, like going to classes, making homework or whatever, going to your student job or whatever you do. So write out all these major tasks or areas of work down for yourself, and then choose the 3 tasks that has the largest impact on reaching the goals that you've written down. And after that, ask yourself whether it's aligned with your goals. Because what you would probably see is that if you look at the goals you've set, where you spend your time makes absolutely no sense for if you want to achieve those goals. So again, I'll put myself out there. So this would be some of my main tasks. Something about podcast editing, which I fortunately don't do too much. Social media posts, something that people spend a lot of time doing, but probably doesn't help you very much reaching your goals. Podcast interviews, sales efforts in my company, which is what I'm responsible for. Then all the administrative work, recruiting, public speaking, follow-up calls with peers. I do that a lot too. And then investment research. The blue ones here, that's the 3 most important for me to reach my goals. To be honest, I probably spend way too much time on number 5, where I should be spending more time on number 6. But putting it up here, it's very clear for me, okay, I definitely spend way too much time on that one. And that's not what's gonna help grow the business, me doing administrative work. I have to get rid of that. So that's a way for you, when you've put down all your goals, make this little task and then see how should I rearrange my life, or how should I start prioritizing other things. Yeah. And then let's move on to the second section, which is the section where I tell you that you can achieve a lot of things in life without doing any work. That's not how it is, but there are certain shortcuts that you can make to make your life a little bit easier or more fun. This is mainly for the guys here that are guys and girls that are studying. But let's get to it, and I'll show you 3 little steps that will help build your resume, and at the same time be a lot of fun for you guys. So first up is take your master's abroad if you have the chance. If you didn't start yet on a master's degree, please take it abroad. The benefit of taking your master's abroad is that it only takes 1 year, so that's nice. And you get more or less, at least in Denmark, everything paid in scholarships. So you, instead of having 2 years of a master, you only have 1 year, so you save 1 year of your life. That 1 year, you can then choose to spend on starting a company, or you can go to work earlier in your dream career, or you can take an extra gap year, which is what I did. So here are just some photos. Basically what my master's degree ended up looking like when I finished CBS was that I had 1 year living abroad and traveling the world. And then I had another year going to Barcelona, studying a master's degree, which was way too easy compared to CBS. So it was almost 2 years of vacation, and it looks much better on my resume than if I took the 2 years at CBS. So please consider that if you have the chance. And that's not to say that there's no work in it. Like, you have to take a GMAT if you want to go to a business school abroad. If you study some other field, you probably have to do some tests as well to get in. You have to spend a lot of time applying for scholarships and all that, but it pays off big time. Another thing I recommend is that if you have the chance, then instead of spending your entire summer doing almost nothing at home, then see if you can find an internship abroad. Obviously, you get both an internship, which is great on your resume, and you get to go abroad. So it's good fun. Personally, I did an internship with FLSmidth, which is a industry company in Denmark working in the cements and minerals industry. Very boring, but it was a lot of fun because I got the chance to make basically the business plans for all of Southeast Asia for this company going forward with the different country managers all around. The way I found the internship was canvas or cold calling, more or less. So what I did was I took the Danish Chamber of Commerce. If you're not from Denmark, I'm sure there's a Chamber of Commerce for the country you are in. So you just search for some of the cities that you want to go to or some of the countries you want to go to. Danish Chamber of Commerce, Singapore, Danish Chamber of Commerce, Thailand, Danish Chamber of Commerce, Indonesia, and so on. And then in there, you will find the contact persons of all the men and women that lead these offices around the world. And you just drop them a message and say, hey, I want to come work for you on an internship. I'll work for free. And then just do the work for free for a couple of months. It's not a big deal. That's a great way to build your resume and have a lot of fun at the same time. Third thing that you can do to get ahead and have a lot of fun is try to see if you can join a youth board. And not many companies actually have these youth boards. I try a lot to ask companies to create a youth board, but if they don't have it, then reach out to them and see if they will establish a youth board and if you can help them establish that youth board. So you find a lot of, I've been in the Pandora Sustainability Youth Board, word of recommendation, yeah. So try, even if companies don't have a youth board yet, a lot of them will be open to it if you just contact them and say, I want to make a youth board for you. I'll recruit 3, 4, 5 people. And then the time commitment is very, very low for you, but it will be great on your resume and it will be very, very good for your network. So as you see, I'm sitting here with Lars Horsbøl at his wedding. He is a very famous Danish investor, a very wealthy guy. We got to go on his yacht a couple of times. And I also co-authored a book with him, which is nominated as Business Book of the Year by Financial Times and McKinsey. We got to drive around in the Bentley of the Bitcoin pirate down in Switzerland. So there are certain benefits that you can get to by knowing the right people. And joining a youth board is one way to get to know a lot of cool people and at the same time build your resume. So definitely recommend you do that one as well. So that was 3 nice things where you can build your resume, have a lot of fun, and not do too much extra work or even less work.
Yeah, that's cool. And what just a quick comment to the youth board thing, because I see quite a bit of companies now actually taking in young entrepreneurial minded people who want to start a youth board. What was the experience like for you actually committing time? Because that's sometimes they require a bit of time from you. How much time did you spend on actually being in a youth board, and besides the network, what else did you get out of it?
I think that depends a lot from company to company, of course. But in this case, working with Nordic Eye, a venture capital fund, and if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I would probably want to go into venture capital. So that's why I wanted to join that youth board. I think I spend less than 5 hours a week.
Okay.
Definitely less than 5 hours a week. And then I got to go on some nice vacations on a yacht and meet some cool people. That wasn't too bad.
No, it doesn't sound too bad.
I was also obviously lucky. I'm not saying that will happen for all of you guys, but I'm saying you will meet some cool people and it will be very, very good on your resume. Like, how often can you put on your resume that you work with a VC fund, but you only had to spend 5 hours a week?
Yeah.
Like that's building your resume very, very easily.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. And that's a note, I think, to 99% of you in here to take with you, that it is a very easy way to build your resume and build out a cool network, and start interacting with a lot of cool people.
Yeah. Good. So then the next section is really about surrounding yourself with great people. So I think I've always heard from I was 14, 15 people talking about this being networking and how important networking is. And if you know the right people, then everything is great. You hear that all the time, but you don't really see it for yourself. Like, you don't see what it means before you have the network. And when you have the network, then it's very clear that yes, it's great. It's awesome. So you have to get to that point, obviously. So it's about building up a network. So I'll just mention a few areas where you can try to build a great network for yourself, and also just surround yourself with the right people, so you're always motivated to reach these goals that you set for yourself. So the first one is your 5 closest friends. It is a cliche, I know, but it is very, very important. I actually see one of the guys, Sven, shout out to Sven, who is on the call here, who's one of my good friends. What I recommend when we're talking about your 5 closest friends, you've heard it before, if you're the average of your 5 closest friends, right? So if your friends are not talking about the things that you're interested in, for me, investing, starting businesses, traveling the world, making an impact on other people's lives, and so on, if your closest friends don't do that, I'm sorry to say, but you really have to find other friends if you want to reach your goals. That might suck because you have some friend from you were 14 and they are super lazy, but I would probably just get rid of that friend, to be fair. Try to find some people around you that inspire you and that help motivate you on a daily basis. Another thing is Christian has put 4 guys with a MacBook here and then 1 astronaut or something. What that represents is that for me, I am a CBS guy, and most of my friends are other CBS guys sitting behind their MacBooks talking about investing and business and all this. And I have a strong recommendation that you should find someone, or you should at least have 1 good friend who knows something else, who thinks differently, who has another perspective on life. Because if you're just 5 guys that want to go to McKinsey, you're not going to get any other perspective on life. And I'm quite sure that you will realize later on that I went to Globe on CBS. We were 15 Danes. 14 Danes went to consulting. I became an entrepreneur. All of the 14 hate their jobs. So go to consulting if that's what you want, check it out, but just realize that in the end, a lot of people will not like it. So try to get another perspective in your life as well. I'm fortunate to have Nick, who's been my best friend since many, many years. Sven, who is also listening here, and they are both in biomedicine. So that's just completely different from what we the rest of us do at CBS. So having this other perspective and hearing about some science that you have no clue of, that's very, very good for you. So if you can find a computer science friend or someone who is into biomedicine or engineering or whatever, try to become good friends with those guys so you have another perspective. Or just find someone who's not even studying at all. So if you're doing a five-year university degree, then find someone who is actually fairly successful or working really hard to become something, but they are not doing uni at all because they think uni is overrated, which might be true. I mean, I think it is. So try to find someone who just have another perspective on life than you do. Next thing is you got to find a way to meet interesting people. For me, it has been podcasting, and I know that you cannot all start a podcast.
Why not, Lars?
Well, you probably can, but there'll be a lot. I'm not saying you shouldn't. Please do. Why not? I started first a podcast on entrepreneurship with Eske, who I met through the youth board with Nordic Eye. We've done that for 3 years now. Then I started another podcast on real estate because I wanted to get more into that industry and start building my network within real estate because I knew I wanted to do a PropTech company. So it made a lot of sense for me to start building a reach and a network within the industry. And now I also host PropTech Denmark's podcast. And obviously through all this, I meet so many people. And not only do I meet a lot of people, they all end up liking me. Why? Because they get to speak about themselves for 1 hour. And people like that. So it's very easy. You just sit there and you ask questions and then they like you and you have a great network. Very easy way to go about it. Some other ways, just to have some suggestions on what you can do if you're not starting a podcast. You can start a blog, or you can start asking yourself to write something within some topic of your interest twice a week on LinkedIn. So you have a voice on LinkedIn or you have a blog or something. Another thing you could do is you set some sort of goal for yourself where you just have to meet, talk to 100 new people in 100 days. So every day you have to have at least a 15-minute conversation with someone new. That new person might be a homeless guy on the street, but that's interesting in itself. I'm sure you will learn something. It can be someone you meet in the supermarket. It can be someone you reach out to and ask out for a coffee and so on. So you can just set a goal. I want to meet 100 people in 100 days. And obviously, if you know the area of your interest already, then why not try to reach out to a lot of people and ask them if they want to go for a coffee or if you can give them a call or whatever.
And a quick recommendation in line with what you're saying, Lars, is if you're still in school, I know many of you here in the call are still in school. A great way to meet new people while you're in school is every day you at a very similar time you all have lunch. So try to utilize that time where you have lunch anyway, and everyone else is out for lunch to meet a new person. It could be one from your class you've never spoken to, or one from the neighboring school. Whatever it is, it's a very unique and very easy way to interact with a lot of new people and actually have a very intimate time with them and get to know them a little better. So utilize that time that you have there and produce something effective like building your network.
I think that's a great idea. And from podcasting, just to put a few words on what it meant to me, it meant that we had absolutely no problems finding investors for our company. I can say that it has not been an issue at all. And the people that we chose to invest in us have been guys that I know personally because I've been recording podcasts with them and chatting with them afterwards. So we picked some investors that I actually really like talking to. And 2 of them are here. So Michael Mortensen, who is one of the richest guys in Denmark, and then Kasper Kravlund, who is he's a cool guy. He's sold a data center to TDC. He's made a few companies out in Asia with a couple of thousand employees. He's made Aarhus street food, if anybody is from Aarhus, and he's been traveling a lot too. He's a fun guy. And then, of course, which I believe most of you already do, follow some inspiring individuals. So instead of following only your friends or weird people and cat videos and so on Instagram, because like we all know that we spend too much time on social media, and that's an issue for all of us, for me as well. But then at least try to put some great content on your social media by following the right people. So a few examples in business, I follow a guy like Elon Musk because he's absolutely insane, and it's incredible what he can do with the 24 hours a day that we have. I follow, of course, Lars Horsbøl, and has done it for years. I've been reading his books, and now he's a friend of mine. On travel and experiences, I followed this guy called Johnny Ward, Mr. One Step Forward, who has traveled to all countries on Earth, and he's a big inspiration of mine and one of the reasons I've traveled so much. I follow the Yes Theory guys, which some of you guys may know from YouTube. And then another friend of mine, Anders Hoffmann, who's been the first guy in the world to do an Ironman on Antarctica. So he's quite cool as well. And then I like sales and I like marketing. So in sales, I follow Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing New York. If somebody knows that show, it's a great fun. Which is another thing. I also watch Netflix, obviously, or other stuff. And when I do that, I always try to learn something, historic, or, watch $1 Million Listing, because at least I learn about sales at the same time, or, learn something while you consume content all day long. Yeah. And then I think my last piece of advice for you guys, if you didn't already realize from what I've been saying so far, is that you got to prioritize experiences in life. I think that's my main point today. It's good that you focus on your career and focus on your studies, but don't forget to have fun and, travel the world, meet new people, set some weird goals sometimes, and experience things, because before you know of it, you will be married and you have kids and you can't do any of these things. So try to do as much as possible while you're still young. Make yourself a bucket list and start hammering them.
It's a pretty good advice.
So also the same thing comes to investments. I'm a very financially minded person. I like to invest, and you should, of course, invest. Don't spend all your money on going to nightclubs or something. But when you invest in yourself first before you buy stocks that go up 20% a year or 10% or whatever. Invest in traveling or, learning new things or whatever. And then remember that compound interest also works in real life. It's not only when it comes to financials. Like everything I've done in my life, there's always been a next step coming out of it, whether I knew it or not. So I wrote a book in high school, or after high school, top student. That turned into my student job doing my bachelor, where we made the first 4-day work week in the world in a Danish company. That came from that book. That book and that experience from 4-day work week also made me get into the youth board. So everything has aligned. My podcast is what turns into yet another podcast, and then a big exposure, and you learn a lot of things and you meet the right people and you get investors or whatever. So just get going and do some crazy shit, do something that's different than what everybody else is doing, and you'll get ahead for sure. That's it. And then hopefully you also have some questions.
Thanks, Lars. Great presentation, I think, and a nice picture up there. I see a friend of mine, Christian, up there as well. Yeah, so now we have, now it's the time for a Q&A session where you can ask questions to Lars about, how, for example, how he's done some of the things he's done, or some practical advice on something that you're experiencing right now. And the way you do this is, instead of writing in the chat, we would actually like to see a face on you. So use the raise your hand function, then unmute your microphone, and we can talk directly. So I see we already have the first question coming in, and we will start with Brahim. Just please unmute your microphone and raise your, and ask your question.
Yes, sure. So my question is actually, what do you think about lowering the commitment for the university studies, and just actually practicing up to until the exam, and using the most time on actually building a business, or in terms of investing in yourself?
I think that really much depends on what you want to do later on, right? If you want to be, if you know you want to be an entrepreneur, then your grades don't really matter, right? So if you're absolutely sure you want to be an entrepreneur, then don't worry too much about your grades. If you do want the option to go into, I don't know, investment banking, consulting, some big industry company, then remember your, still remember the grades at the same time. So it's hard to answer. For me personally, I definitely didn't spend enough time on grades the first semester I went to CBS. That became a big problem later on, because then I had to, perform a little better on some other semesters. So because I wanted the fallback, I wanted a fallback where I knew I could always go to VC or consulting and something and make 50 or 60K a month. I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but maybe I wanted to do consulting for 1 year first, if you don't have the idea, right? Because I did have a consulting offer in Dubai, but I ended up not taking it and starting directly, but I could just have taken 1 or 2 years in consulting, hating it, and then becoming an entrepreneur. But, because I'm sure you learn a lot. I think I would learn a lot from it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we had another question coming in. I can't see who raised their hand right now, but the person, I think it's Arthur. You have a question?
Yeah, sure. So Lars, you mentioned that, or you showed us some of your goals earlier on, and I really think some of them were very big goals. I just came to wonder, how often do you set new goals, and how often do you sit down, write down new lists of bucket lists, and how short term do these goals actually get?
Well, I try to break down the goals, right? So I set some big goal and then I break it down, and maybe I don't achieve it on time. That's fine. How often do I set goals? Maybe once a year. It's usually something I do when I travel, because that's the time where you get to have a perspective on life. And that's also why I always recommend people to travel a lot, because when you go along in your everyday workday, right now for me, the only thing that seems important is Resights, right? And obviously it's important, it's my business, but that's the only thing I'm doing when I'm here. I only focus on that. Then when you get away, you travel, you go far away in the world, and you realize that nothing in Denmark or nothing in where you live actually matters. The world will go on no matter what. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You also see when you come back, even if you've been gone for a year or 6 months, you come back and everything is still the same. So the time I usually set goals is when I've been traveling, or I'm sitting on some bus for 10 hours or whatever, and then you sit and you start having thoughts about life and what you want.
Thank you.
But yeah, I like to set big goals. Why not?
Yeah.
A question from following up on Arthur: is it to better conceptualize, or is it to motivate yourself? What is the role of a goal for you in your life, and why do you very much use goals like you do?
to hold myself accountable to it, I think is very important. And to, you know, both to hold myself accountable, but it's also just setting that goal and then break it down, right? So set a big goal and say, okay, I really want to, I want to achieve this, but again, ask yourself, why do you want to achieve it? Because if there's no why, it's not going to happen. But if you have the why and you set the goal, then just break it down and you will figure out, what should I do on an everyday basis to get to that goal? That's also the point of this small task I said you should bring home. You know, write down, set your goals, break it down, and then look at what you do in life right now, and do you spend your time on the things you need to spend your time on? If not, how can you prioritize a little bit differently? What can you do differently right now? Even if it's just 5 hours a week, what can you do differently to get to where you want to be? And it's always the journey, you know, it's always the journey to something that's fun. Like, I also very much want to, it's not one of the goals I put, I've always wanted to make a business and sell it for more than 100 million. Why? I don't know. It just seems, it seems cool, you know. You want to build something that's of value to other people. Whether it's a 50 million or 20 million or 100 or what, it doesn't really matter. And I'm pretty sure if I ever sell a company for a price like that, that's probably not going to be the happy day. That's probably going to suck. Because the whole thing that's fun is building the company, right? It's the process of doing it that has to be fun.
It's great insight. And we have another question from Marius Torbjörner. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question, Marius. Okay. It was a fault, he says. Okay. In the meantime, I would like to know, what has been the biggest impacts that an experience has had in your life and where you are now? I'm thinking both with Resights. What has been the most important, like, learning throughout your career, whether it's been being in a youth board or interacting with, for example, Lars Horsbøl, or whatever it is? Can you think of something? I know it's a big question,
yeah,
but
that's
I
hard.
think there's probably a lot of people out there who want to know, because you have achieved a lot in a very short time.
Yeah, that's hard to answer, definitely. I mean, I can't really find one point that's like, okay, that's what made a difference. I think definitely one part was taking a gap year after, you know, primary or after high school, and traveling for 6 months with friends. That gave a lot of perspective on life and made me learn a lot of things. Like, I've learned much more from my gap years than I've learned from going to school. Much more. Like, that's where you grow personally. You don't learn about some matrix or, you know, some weird theory that you're never going to use. That's where you grow personally somehow.
Yeah. And if you have a question for Lars, use the raise your hand function. Then I can see it on the right side of my screen, and I'll pick one out. And we have a question coming from Matthias Ehlers. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Yes, hey. Well, this is a question that you ask a lot, so I wanted to ask you, what have been your best and worst investments, both money and time-wise?
Yeah, that's true. My worst investment financially. There's been a few. I'm pretty sure if you have listened to my podcast, you've probably heard before that I'm dreadful that I didn't get to buy an apartment when I moved to Copenhagen in 2015. That sucked a lot. I wanted to negotiate the price. I shouldn't have done that. That sucked. I once invested in. That's definitely the worst thing I've ever done. Was in the first year of high school. So that was 2011. And Nick and I, we were looking into, we didn't have that much money. We had around 10 or 15,000 each to invest. And we looked into what should we invest the money in. We looked at two things particularly, or three things. We looked at biotech, which I didn't understand anything of, and I still don't. So that was not really relevant for me. The second was 3D printing, and the idea that you could print organs, which I thought was quite cool. And the third was cryptocurrencies. We picked 3D printing, and I think it went down 98%. It would have been much better if we had invested in Bitcoin at that point, for sure.
I'm sure it would have.
But that's, you know, you learn. I mean, that's what it is. Time-wise, what's the worst investment I've made? That's hard. I'm not going to say university because I think it's good to take an education. So I'm not going to say that, but yeah, that definitely takes a lot of time, and I question the value of it.
Okay.
Thanks.
And we have a question from Christian, who's unable to raise his hand. He says, how do you structure your day to accomplish your goals? I would like to know that as well.
Well, I used to work a lot with task management systems like Asana. And then doing that, you know, sometimes I do public speeches on productivity and time management. And like the main thing you should focus on is on any given day, figure out what are the 1 or 2 tasks that I have to do today to get to my goals. Because it's very, very easy to fill up a day with a lot of stuff that doesn't really matter. So it's fine that you have 10 or 15 things that you got to do in a day, but you know, put down that one thing that's most important. Right now, I don't have a lot of that because I'm on the phone and in meetings from 9 to 4, 9 to 5 all day long. And then I have to write invoices and answer emails and so on. But that's, you know, there is one main goal. There's a revenue goal, right? That's what I'm working towards on a daily basis. So that's just being in the grind, reaching that. But on a day-to-day basis, figure out what are the 1 or 2 things that you got to do today.
That, of course, deliver the most value or create the biggest impact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Great question, Christian. Meantime, we got another question in from Jonas. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Jose. Please unmute your microphone. I'm sorry if I butchered your name.
It's okay. Thank you. And hello, and thank you for your advice and presentation. It was really nice. I see a lot of perspectives from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in your presentation. It has probably been an inspiration for you. And I also think that Simon Sinek's Why and the Golden Circle theory is something that has inspired you. But I don't know. I just think I see some perspectives from that. So my question is, there are so many great books and courses and theories out there. And if there's just one specific book or course or anything that you would recommend for reaching your goals in life, what would it be?
Good question. I've actually never written the seven rules of life, or what it's called, the 7 great habits or whatever. I've seen it a million times.
You should. It is really nice.
I never read it. One book. I probably have a lot of book recommendations, and we always ask for book recommendations on my podcast as well. A few books to recommend. One that definitely had an impact on me was the 4-hour work week. Although I'm sure that Tim Ferriss never worked 4 hours. He probably worked 80 hours a week and probably still does. But that's a great book, and it has definitely inspired me. I've used virtual assistants for many years. One point had 3 virtual assistants when I had my student job, because there are so many things that just take a lot of time, and if you can pay someone $5 an hour, why not? He also was part of starting this digital nomad movement, which I've also tried out. So definitely a lot of inspiration from that. Then there is a Danish guy who is underrated. He's not that much in the media anymore. Rasmus Ankersen, if some of you guys know him. He is part of the success of FC Midtjylland, and he is also on the board of Brentford, who just got into the Premier League. He's a very cool guy, been writing, I think, 4 or 5 books. He had one called Gold Mines, which is very interesting, and it's a lot about hard work, basically. So if you're ever in doubt whether hard work pays off, read that book and you will get fired up. That's in sports, but it'll definitely help. And then a third book I want to recommend is one that I didn't want to read for years because of the title. It's how to win friends and influence people. And I thought that was such a weird title because it's not that I don't have any friends, so I didn't get it. I thought, why would I read that? But it's a very old book. I think it's 100 years old or something. But the things that's in there, the stories that's in there, are very inspirational, and it's very basic. It's a lot of these things with, treat people a good way. How do you motivate people? All these things. That's a very good book.
Thank you.
All right, and we have just 3 minutes left before we're signing off. So if anybody has a couple last questions, we'll try to get through them. I see we have a question from Jacob Poulsen.
Lars, you have traveled a lot. How can you make time for travel and work?
I don't do weekends.
Okay.
So that's the answer. I don't do weekends. I haven't done weekends for, I don't know, many years. I travel a lot. During my time as a student, I probably travel 3 or 4 months a year on average. But that obviously means that if you want to travel that much, you gotta make time for that somehow. So I just don't do weekends. You work and study more or less all day on the weekend. It's not that I don't sleep late in the weekend. I maybe get to work at 10 or 10:30, and some days I leave early, 8-9 p.m. or some days I go late and have a couple of drinks in the office and stay until 1 or 2 a.m. But that's my way. I create time for traveling by not doing weekends.
Cool, thank you.
Which is obviously one of the things that people don't see on your, your social media and stuff. But I don't take time for that.
And we have one last question. We have time for one last question. So if you want to be the last question, raise your hand, and I'll try to pick some of you. Okay, we'll take Arthur again. He has a follow-up question, I think.
Yeah, so Lars, I was just wondering, now you've been speaking about setting goals and how you manage to set goals while studying also. So about Resights, you're very engaged in it now. Is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life, or do you have any ventures that you wish to journey on post-exit, perhaps? What are your goals there?
That's too early to say. I'll do Resights as long as I have fun doing it. And right now we have a lot of fun doing it. And I enjoy working a lot of hours in the office, and I also have a very good team. in the office with me also sometimes at night. Christian also, who is sitting here as well, and Lasse, Emil. So, I mean, we have a lot of fun working right now. So we'll do that for a couple of years, maybe more. Let's see. We don't know yet if we're gonna take the concept abroad, or if we're only gonna do Denmark. We also, if we're not going abroad, maybe we'll do some other companies in Denmark under the Resights structure. We really don't know at this point, but we'll see. But at some point, I'll need to get 6 or 7 weeks off, because I have to complete the Mongol rally at some point.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
So I have to do that at some point, and that takes 6 or 7 weeks. And that's definitely not going to be this summer. I think that's also still closed, most borders, but it's probably not going to be the next either. But at some point, I have to be able to do that.
Awesome, Lars. Thank you.